Hey, friend, Church C coming at you once again. Thank you for tuning into What Does It Take to Win. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty okay. You know, the family's doing good, the kids are growing, the wife is happy. I can't complain. Hey, I just wanted to give you a quick reminder that I have a ton of content that you can access simply by clicking the link in the bio. A brand new project that I released entitled Transitions is out, available on every platform in which you listen to music with. So go ahead and give that a listen, check it out. I still make beats. You can reach out to me if you need any type of, production or custom made tracks. If you're looking to just grab some quick instrumentals, check out my beat page and you can go ahead and download some, quick instrumentals from there and you can use it for whatever project you want to use it on. I'm also offering a free loop pack at the moment. So if you are a musical director, musician, etc., and you play at a church, or better yet, you do touring and other engagements in which you need something similar to a metronome, but you want to add some additional percussive elements to make your sound sort of sound fuller, you can go ahead and check out my free loop pack. You can go ahead and download that. You can also name your price if you feel like, sending me some money. That's greatly appreciated. But for now, it is a free loop pack, and I do have some other loop packs you can also check out. So yeah, you can access all of that by clicking the link in the description. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the topic of the hour. And this one, it's not going to be like my other episodes. It's going to be a little different. It's something I wanted to sort of jump into quickly and drop some nuggets and really, get your mind going, get the wheels turning, and have you consider what I'm going to talk about. So the title of this episode is It Really Worth It? And we're going to be dealing with time management, energy management, money management, right? So I'll repeat it again. The title of this episode is It Really Worth It? As I'm getting older, I find myself questioning if things are really worth my time and effort. I ask myself, is it really worth it, right? I sometimes, for example, would get invited to participate in activities that sound exciting, fulfilling, and overall fun, right? But sometimes I have to remind myself that all that glitters is simply not gold, and it really might not be worth my time. In fact, it could quite possibly be a waste of my time. As you and I are growing older, we should be able to identify activities, tasks, etc., that are worth our time and others that are simply just a waste of time, right? So that's why I decided to name this episode, Is It Really Worth It? Now, usually I'll have 3 focal points, but in this episode, I have one main idea to think about with 3 sub points that are tied into it. Okay. So the general main idea is, am I gaining or am I losing? And then the 3 sub points, if you will, are time, energy, and last but not least, money. Okay. So the question I want you to ask yourself is simply, am I gaining or am I losing time, energy, and money? So let's start with the first sub point. Am I gaining or am I losing time? I'll talk about myself. So as I'm an entrepreneur who has a family and I'm heavily involved in music, before I take on any engagements, studio sessions, etc., I first have to factor in the amount of time it's going to take for me to prepare for it. Next, I have to consider the amount of time it's going to take for me to travel to the place of the engagement or the session or whatever it may be, right? Next, I have to consider and take into account of how long it's going to take for me to perform the actual service, right? So if I'm being hired to be, simply put, let's say a musical director or a musician, and I'm going to play piano, how long is it going to take me to perform that service? Is it going to be a couple of minutes? Is it going to be a 30-minute thing? Is it going to take a couple of hours? Right? I have to factor that in. And finally, I'm going to have to factor in the amount of time it's going to take for travel, right? I have to figure out how long it's going to take me to get there and how long it's going to take to get back home. As I factor all of these in, I'm considering, that it's pretty much taking me away from my wife and my two small children, right? This is time that I'm never going to get back. So I have to ask myself, okay, is it worth having my time taken away from my family to go and perform this service? Is it going to be worth it? Is what I'm doing going to add any value to my household? Or would I simply just be wasting my time? Sometimes it is absolutely worth it. And my wife and children will appreciate, what I'm doing, and it is adding value to my household. But there have been some times where it's really just not worth it and it's a waste of time. And I would actually have to turn down these engagements. You can apply this same logic to all areas of your life. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to necessarily be a musician. You don't have to be in the music field. But you can apply it to the other areas of your life. You can apply it to relationships, especially if you're considering marriage. You have to ask yourself, is it worth your time, or is it just something that's going to run you into circles, right? Is it going to be a true relationship, or is it just going to be, for lack of better words, a situational relationship or a situationship, right? You can apply it to your jobs, right? Jobs can be a blessing, but some jobs simply do just get in the way, and they kind of they put you into a trap that you can't get out of. You wouldn't want to be in a job where there's no room for growth. And let's say, okay, all of the living costs that you have are rising, but this job is refusing to give you a promotion. They're refusing to give you a pay raise, So these are just some things to consider. You're spending, let's say, 12 hours of your day, right, devoting your life to this job. If you factor in your commute to and from work, depending on how far away you live, not a lot of people have the luxury of living close to where they work. So you have to factor that in. Then you're going to have to work. Sometimes you might want to put in overtime and then commute back home. All of this just for a couple extra dollars. You're taking time away from your overall life and your goals and your family. You really have to ask yourself, okay, are they going to promote me? Where is this job going to take my life? It might be a good job. It might just be something that's in the way to kind of help you survive and not necessarily thrive. Okay. So that was a mouthful for point number one, sub point number one. But I would really like you to give that some thought and, try to apply that to your life. Let's move on to my second sub point. And it deals with energy. So am I gaining or am I losing energy? So I've mentioned, right, how I have to consider the time that I would be losing if I were to take on specific engagements and etc. Another thing to factor in is energy. We as humans do not have unlimited energy, right? And I'm sure if you have children like myself, you can agree with me. Even my 3-year-old doesn't have unlimited energy. When it's nap time, it's okay, Dada, ready to take a nap, ready to get my blanket, and all the above. So, we, as humans, we don't have unlimited energy. So I've given the breakdown on time. So something similar applies to energy, right? How much of an effort is it going to take for me to learn the material for the engagement? That's something I have to consider, right? If we're talking about me and doing this entrepreneurial venture as a musician or in the music field, how much time is it going to take for me to learn the material? Or if I'm doing production, how long is it going to take for me to create from scratch the original music for the artist and really do the mixing and mastering if I'm not going to outsource that? How long is that going to take? Are they going to expect me to do additional cleanup work and overdubs? How long is this going to take? Right? These are things I have to factor in. And that's going to take a lot of energy from me. It's not just something that sort of just drops down from the sky and it's like, oh, okay, well, this will work out. It takes a lot of brain power, and brain power can be draining. But, let's circle back to learning material. I've been in situations in which I had to learn and perfect some material for engagements and live events that I had to play for. I took and I spent hours upon hours. I had to, shift my schedule from, you know, being the husband and father of two to now just being that musician, producer, entrepreneur. And, I've spent hours learning the material only to show up to the engagement and, the material I've learned was sort of just put on the back burner, right? The person who should have been performing it decided, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And let's just do something easier and something simple. All right. I can't get back the energy or the time that I spent learning and perfecting that material. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with really perfecting your craft. But you don't want to do something in vain, right? You don't want to spend a ton of hours learning something that you're not going to use, right? Just to sort of have in your back pocket. And you can guess, okay, maybe I'll use this one day. But I'd rather make a chart. And then if I'm in the situation in which I have to, pull something out, I can just read the chart, right? We just don't have enough hours in the day to be able to do stuff like that. And if you are indeed a spouse and you have two children or more children, or even if you just have one child, you'll know that your schedule is never set in stone and is always floating. Okay. So, you'd have to really be more discerning about the amount of energy you'll be putting out when it comes to just doing things. People ask you, hey, can you do this for me? Hey, can you do that for me? And they're simply not serious, right? So you have to become more discerning and say, okay, are you serious? What does your track record say? Can I see the fruit of your labor? You say you're an artist, you say you're a songwriter. Okay, where can I access the songs that you've written? If you didn't perform them yourself, can I see some credits? Stuff like that, right? So I think that's all for the second subpoint. And we can quickly move on to the third and final subpoint, which is, am I gaining or am I losing money, right? So it's last, but certainly not the least. Money. You have to make sure that you're being compensated fairly and that you're not sort of just stuck surviving, right? If you are especially an entrepreneur where you have to perform a service in order to get paid, you should make sure that you're being fairly compensated and not taken advantage of. Sometimes people want to kind of rope you into events and maybe throw numbers at you in order to overwork you and underpay you. Here's an example. When I was younger, like let's say probably end of high school, early college years maybe, right? Around that age range. I was asked to play at certain events, play piano, right? And I was told I'd get paid a flat rate, right? They gave me a dollar amount, and to me, back then it sounded really good, especially since I'm still a kid, right? It wasn't something where I just got paid a ton to kind of play music. It was more of a volunteer thing. So now I'm getting money. I'm like, oh, this is really cool, right? But I ended up being overworked now that I look back at it, and underpaid, right? I was under the assumption that I would only have to play at this event for a maximum of 1 or maybe 2 hours. But these events ended up being 4, 5, and sometimes even 6 hours, all for the same rate, right? The same flat rate. As I was younger and not really thinking about it back then, I just thought, hey, this is what it is. And, that's how it is when you're grinding. So it's normal. It's okay. As I began to grow older, my eyes were opened and I was starting to see and realize that, I might have been taken advantage of, right? So going forward, I had to, up front, set my pay point, let those who are interested in hiring me know that here, check this link in my bio. Here are my rates. You can access all of this so that there's no type of confusion, and I get paid fairly, and then you don't feel like you're sort of being overcharged or whatever the case may be, right? So this is something that we need to consider, you know, and we have to ask ourselves, is it worth it? Is it worth the money, right? And that, my friends, was my third and final point. Let's do a quick recap. So my main focus and my main idea is, am I gaining or am I losing? And the 3 points were time, energy, and money. If you are in entrepreneurship, or better yet, if you're a human, if you're just living, you don't want to lose time, you don't want to lose energy, and you most certainly don't want to lose money during these days. Ask yourself these 3 things before you get involved in any situation, whether it's a business transaction, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a friendship, whatever the case may be. Ask yourself, am I gaining or am I losing? And is it really worth it? Thanks for tuning into this episode, and most importantly, thanks for tuning into this podcast. I really, really appreciate you. Hey, don't forget to share this with somebody that you know, love, and you're concerned about. Or you can share it with somebody that you're not even concerned about. But be sure to share it. Like, comment, and share. Also, click the link in the description. I have many more great things in store for you. Let's connect. God bless.